I got to share some things about the Superman, my Superman review. I just went and saw it. It's about 11 o'clock at night. I saw the Amazon early access where they let you see it on February 8th. I think the movie comes out on February 11th. A lot of excitement built around this. You guys know I'm a film snob or try to be. I absolutely love film. You know, it's like the way my family spent time when we were young, and it kind of still is still that important to me. I want to just get quickly into some like three good things, three bad things, three things that worked, three things that didn't from Superman. No, not too many spoilers in here. I will warn you that maybe one of them tells you a little bit more about the movie than you probably already know, but I'll tell you when that's coming. Let's start with the good. The first thing is that it's a breath of fresh air, not the movie. I guess it's not a breath of fresh air. It's a sigh of relief. For us comic book kids that grew up, most of us liked DC comics more than Marvel, right? That's completely flipped now that we have the DCEU, the MCU, and now film-wise, Marvel has completely stolen the lead and stolen the cool from what we had as kids. As like, we just liked Batman better. We liked darker comics. That hasn't translated into good filmmaking, but in this movie, you're able, if you're a DC fan like I've been for a while from the comics and just been continually disappointed by the movies they've put out, the first good thing about this film is that you can take a sigh of relief. It isn't botched, okay? It's not Suicide Squad, or it's not like, it's not Blue Beetle. It's like, okay, we can all relax. DC proved it can make a capable movie when there's high stakes. And the stakes can't be higher than Superman, right? It's the reboot. You gave James Gunn a bag of money. You dropped it off. And if this movie doesn't work, the subsequent 10 movies don't work after it. The first good thing about this movie is that it lets you relax as a DC fan. The movie is decent, okay? You don't leave the theater with your head down, okay? That's the first thing. That may be broad, but I don't want to tell you too much. The first bad thing, though, what didn't work maybe, this is completely preference. I love my superhero films. I love my superheroes when the action is taking place on Earth. I know that might be controversial. Some people like lightsabers and ships that shoot lasers on planet Xenon and whatever. Hey, that's love, bro. That's not me. And for some reason, I love the dynamic of a human and humans having to live in a world when someone is superhuman. And I love seeing that played out on Earth. It has a little bit of reality to it, right? Like, so there's two types of comic book watchers. One wants to release into the universe. Take me anywhere, just where anything's possible. That's what I mean. I'm reading comics to escape reality. I understand that. That's not me. I like my superheroes to deal with human things and human themes and keep it on Earth. The first thing for me that didn't quite work in the Superman movie was the second act. It gets really sci-fi, very sci-fi, which is still true to whatever comics you're referring to as Superman, because there's like 10 different series that you could base a movie off of. The second part gets really sci-fi, and the whole James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy really shines through. For me, it was strange to see that in the Superman movie, where I think the main crux of Superman all the time is learning how to be around humans. But the second is it's not just lasers. It gets very sci-fi when they leave Earth. That one didn't work for me. Let's get back to the second thing that worked well for me. The casting was good. I was looking at superhero movies slated this year, and I was like, man, I don't know. Did we mess up and cast all of the people 10 years ago that could play these roles? I was looking at the Fantastic Four casting, and I was looking at the Superman casting, and I'm like, damn, is this David Cornsweet guy going to be a good Superman? Lex Luthor, is that who I want playing Lex Luthor? Rachel Brosnahan as Lois. Even Fantastic Four, I was like, is this the Fantastic Four? Is this the four people we want playing the Fantastic Four? It seems like all of our strong actors have either already played in a comic book movie or not interested. They started their own liquor brands or they're doing TV shows, right? So it doesn't leave too much for the pool. But I like what Superman does in this regard, is that Superman's always kind of had a legacy of not casting a well-established and well-known actor. They kind of propel kind of an unknown person to play Superman. David Cornsweet is kind of like that. I mean, he's been in the little things. He was in Twisters last year. but he's not a household name. I imagine this will make him a household name for many years to come, playing this role. But the casting worked for me. I didn't love Lex Luthor. I think that ended up being a little too. There's a lot of elements in this movie. You know, there's the Justice Gang, there's Superman, there's different villains. They're setting up a bunch of stuff. This movie had to take on a lot. It had to get a lot of things right first, the basics, the fundamentals of how you like Superman and casting and the villain. Then it had to set up a bunch of things. Again, this is DCEU's like reboot. And so this film takes on a lot. And I think with all the people it's working with, Lex Luthor might be, for me, was the weak point in terms of the villain in it. But the casting overall worked. The second thing that I would say didn't quite work for me is I understand James Gunn's style of filmmaking, doing all the Guardians. And he has this real slapstick kind of like frat guy, maybe that verges on dad joke humor, which is cool. You're making a movie. Hopefully that's going to be $1 billion movie. And it's got to hit like 4 quadrants. Young kids have to like it. Old ladies have to like it. Old men, young, but so you kind of have to have this range, a wide range of the type of humor you select in these. And James Gunn does a good job of being like, hey, if a bunch of people, if a whole family is going to be going to see Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm going to have jokes for everybody in that, right? Whether that's a 4-year-old that thinks like slime is funny, or an 80-year-old woman who thinks this like romantic moment in the movie is funny. And that to me, one, doesn't quite work for me just stylistically. James Gunn's style of like comedy and infusing humor, to me, he always leans on it a little too much. You saw that in the Guardians. Now the Guardians are decent movies, but you can see like where it fails or maybe comes up short. It's like, oh, we're leaning on the humor a little too much. I'm okay with the traditional movies of like, 15% is for comic relief. I know that's traditional and maybe it hasn't worked in the past, but James Gunn's film and style making leans on a little bit more satirical than I would probably like it. Now, I'm not one of those like old dudes that wants their comic book movie to be completely dark because I liked it when I was 16, but now I'm a 40-year-old guy and I want it dark and appeal to my life. I don't want that. I want comic book and superhero movies to be bright and bold, depending on the character. But James Gunn's style of filmmaking, I don't know, it gets a little too slapsticky for my taste. Now, here's the thing with Superman. In the past, you can see that the movies have failed because they've taken Superman too serious, right? It's dark, dreary. He can't relate to anybody. He's basically essentially an alien that can't relate to any humans. And sometimes you lose the fun if you take it too serious. To me, this movie ends up being an overcorrection of that. Purposeful or not, James Gunn is just really, he likes to have fun in his movies. He likes to have funny moments even when it's really serious. But my problem is that you can't take Superman that serious as a viewer if the person making Superman doesn't take him that serious. And that's the one thing that I left the theater thinking the most, was like, oh, it was really, I enjoyed the movie. I was more relieved than enjoyed because I was like, just PTSD from a bunch of DC movies recently. But the thing I left with the most is like, oh, this movie didn't feel serious enough, so I didn't take Superman serious enough. It's like maybe he was like a B-side or C-side superhero, when DCU, he's like the crux, right? He's like the glue of the DCU. The third and last thing that I thought worked, traditionally, I hate CGI. That's a broad statement, but for the most part, how it's used in today's films, I hate CGI. I think we're way too reliant on it. And even though there's technological advancements made in film all the time and we can do incredible things, the human eye still, because CGI is expensive to do in film, and sometimes we sacrifice the quality because they have to hit deadlines when these movie production and date lines are rolled out. Most of the time CGI is used in a movie, it bumps me. Right? Especially in a superhero movie. Like there's always that like montage of a superhero flying around, beating up 1 million people at once, and their bodies look rubbery. It doesn't even look like a human motion. But sometimes I think filmmakers think CGI is going to be a lot better than what it turns out to be in their brains. Making a movie is tough. You're like, okay, cool. I have hired 3 CGI firms that can do this. And so you rely on it. But then when you see the finished product, it might not be where you actually wanted it to be. And then you're like, oh shit, well, I have a deadline to turn this movie. I guess that's going to have to be the best part. Having said all of that, the CGI in this didn't bump me. It probably was one of the first movies that had this amount of CGI. Now, it wasn't perfect. It still has those montages of your superhero or your supervillain flying around and beating up 100 people at once. And you're kind of like, ugh. But in terms of monsters, powers, explosions, things like that, it still kept me in the world for the most part, right? There's one moment where, like, I won't spoil it, but there's a big monster that grows big. And sometimes, and that's very James Gunn, right? He's like, how many wacky monsters can I think up? That took me out a little bit. It still looks good, but it took me out a little bit, the decision to have that in a Superman movie. But for the most part, CGI was really great for someone who hates CGI typically. And then the last bad thing that maybe didn't work for me, I don't want to go woke Willie here, but Mr. Terrific was a little bit like, I don't know. That's the only black character in the movie. It kind of was stereotypical shades of like 70s black characters. Like, what the hell's going on, brother? And I was like, that sounded like an old white guy might have wrote for a young black character. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I'd hate to make it a race thing in like a superhero movie where we should just depart and just like turn our brain off for this. But it was just bumping you because they're giving him lines that felt like it was written for a black character in the 90s a little bit. He's got this whole like poor man's shaft. I don't even know what to call it. It was like, what the hell is going on? Hey man, you see how fast that thing is going? It was like, when was this character written? I don't know. You know, there's the thing called like like African American verbiage. I think that's the. Don't kill me for not knowing. That, you know, movie scripts go through nowadays to be like, oh, let's make sure an old white person is actually being translated to speak how an actual black character would speak. And I'm not sure it went through that process or not because it was a little bit of cringe. If you ever seen Air with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, a good example of this is like Chris Tucker at the end. Hey, man, these white people don't know, man. It's just like, that's not even how Chris Tucker acts. It was kind of the same version on that. Look, I hate to leave it on that whole like woke Willie statement, but it is just, I want to be honest in what I thought about in the film. Overall, however you grade movies, you know, I grade them by grades. I think it's a good C plus B minus movie. A lot of people threw 1 to 10. I'll give it a 6, 7. I'm a hard judge. I think if we take away the fact that I was just relieved not to have a bad DC movie and I just judged it on its face, it's a good movie. It's a good summer blockbuster movie. It's everything you could want and ask for from the DC. The good thing is, too, that I won't mention out of the what worked and what didn't work is like, I'm actually kind of excited for an expansive DC universe. And I think that's what made this movie do its job. I think that's the most important part. Do you want to see more about this world and more spin-offs of characters? And DC and James Gunn definitely have that with Superman. Thank you guys for listening. You know, I only do this when there's big movies or big topics, but let me know what you guys think. I think it comes out on Friday if you haven't seen Early Access. Let me know if you're excited for it. If comic book movies, you're just like completely fatigued and you want something else, let me know in the comments. Let me know what other movies. I mean, it's a big blockbuster summer. You know, in 2 weeks, we're going to be seeing Fantastic Four. We have an editing movie, and some of the best filmmakers ever are making films this year, whether it's Spike Lee, Paul Thomas Anderson. I think we have, I don't know, we have a lot on slate to look forward to. So if you're a movie fan, join me. We'll talk about it. Hopefully we'll see you in the theaters or whatever the movie critics say. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.